Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. This verse 264. Okay. Ragadvesha vimuktaishtu dishayan indrayeshcharan atmavashaya videyatma prasadam adhigacchati. Ragadvesha vimuktaishtu vishan indrayeshcharan atmavashaya videyatma prasadam adhigacchati. Okay, word meaning. Raga, attachment. Dvesha, and detachment. Vimuktais, by one who has become free from two but Vishayan, sense object. Indriyai, by the senses. Charan, acting upon. Atmavashai, under one's control. Videya Atma, one who follows regulated freedom. Prasadam, the mercy of the Lord. Adhigachati, attains. Translation. But a person free from all attachment and aversion and able to control his senses through regulative principles of freedom can attain the complete mercy of the Lord. Purport. It is already explained, one may externally control the senses by some artificial process, but unless the senses are engaged in transcendental service of the Lord, there is every chance of a fall. Although the person in full Krishna consciousness may apparently be on the sensual plane, because of his being Krishna conscious, he has no attachment to sensual activities. The Krishna conscious person is concerned only with the satisfaction of Krishna and nothing else. Therefore, he is transcendental to all attachment and detachment. If Krishna wants, a devotee can do anything which is ordinarily undesirable, and if Krishna does not want, he shall not do that which he would have ordinarily done for his own satisfaction. Therefore, to act or not act is within his control, because he acts only under the direction of Krishna. This consciousness is the causeless mercy of the Lord, which the devotee can achieve in spite of his being attached to sensual platform. Om Jnana Timarandasya Gyananjana Shalaka Chakshunmritam Gena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manabhishtam Tapidam Gena Bhutale Sayam Rupagadamayam Dudati Sabhadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Hitavadamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sargujatam Sahagana Bhagavatam Mitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Bhavijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Vishakvitam Cham Krishna Panasindho Dinabandho Dinapate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindhabhyeva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Avishvambara Maha Samaya Premaika Sampanideha Padmasutta Hadra Dadu Hidaya Pashtaika Bandhuttama Siteshwara Hacha Pati Guravatina Kshama Shiva Sagadare Vishame Pamegadistam Gati Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Ragadvesha Vimuktaishtu Vishyanendraishchara Atmavasha Vidayatma Prasadam Adhigacchati. But a person free from all attachment and aversion and able to control his senses through regulated principles of freedom can obtain the complete mercy of the Lord. The first word is but, because the last few verses had explained the process of more or less the opposite process, becoming under the influence of the material energy, which if we remind people that contemplating the objects of the senses and then attachment and lust, anger, from anger, complete delusion, then bewilderment. When memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost. When intelligence is lost, one falls down again into material pool. So I was reading here and thinking today that the many times acharyas are equating intelligence with Krishna consciousness, Buddhi Yoga, that your mind is carried away by these things like contemplation of the sense objects on down. Now the contrast is coming here, how to counteract it. Raga dvesha vimuktaishtu. One should conquer these things. Raga dvesha. Vimuktanam. Raga dvesha. There's many places in Gita where this is talked about. The dvesha here is given as aversion, but generally speaking, this dvesha means actual envy or sometimes hatred. You know, we hate something, you love something. Every day, you know, we're seeing these crazy headlines. If you ever see the news, and one of the aspects of the news is many times, some guy's killing his girlfriend, you know, because he's envious, he hates, he's so attached. So Rajo Ragatnakam Vidhi Trishna Sanga Samudbhavam Pannavedati Konteya. This in the 14th chapter, this raga is described. Rajo, the mode of passion, is typified by this. Rajo Ragatnakam Vidhi Trishna Sanga. Trishna means thirst. Thirsting, desiring something. Icha dvesha smutin dvandamayanata. Icha dvesha. This another verse later on the Gita. It's desire and hatred. These things we're born with. We come into the world impelled by these things. This dvesha. So Krishna says again in Gita in the 12th chapter, someone who's very dear to me, he's finished, he has no, if we want to become dear to Krishna, like then we have to give up Dvesha, Raga, Dvesha. Raga is okay if one has, Raga can mean the spontaneous path of loving Krishna, that type of Raga. So therefore, in the last line of this purport, it says, a devotee can achieve in spite of being attached to a sensual platform. But attached to a sensual platform doesn't mean that we run after the sense objects. Krishna Krishna Chirambata Lambate. There's one Rupa Goswami's verse where Lord Chaitanya is actually speaking, saying that he's thirsting always for Krishna, this raga. Of course, Lord Chaitanya is the highest platform of raga, the love of Krishna, this, you know, Mahabhav, beyond anything that we can. He gave the example. So this is prasad also. Prasad means the mercy. When you get the mercy, Prabhupada is connecting all these dots in his verse. Therefore, to act or not to act is within the control. He acts only under this consciousness is the causeless mercy. Yasha prasada bhagavat prasada. Kripa pai bhakti lata bij. So how much it is important to attach oneself to Krishna consciousness, which is very difficult without the aid of the sadhus, sadhu sangha, satsanga, charikainu, asate vilas. We will have to take pleasure in this material world, according to Narottam Das Thakur. Unless we get association, if we give up association of the devotees, then we automatically have to take the materialistic association. So Prabhupada has already given this mercy all over the world that here there were no sadhus. He could actually create sadhus. This is a spiritual master's mercy, Prabhupada's mercy. Uh, Guru Krishna Koran Bhakti Bhaktagan. He delivers by his mercy. He delivers all the bhaktas. So there's no estimation, as described by Uddhava when he's speaking with Krishna, that no one can estimate this type of mercy. Even if he has Kritamrida Muda Smaranta, if he has lifetimes of Brahma. So if we read and hear that, we think, wow, that's an amazing thing. We don't feel that, but it's there. Uddhava is the highest elevated devotee. I mean, unless we come to the gopis. So, but he's speaking that verse. Even the kavis cannot describe. So what to speak of us? We're very small, with small mouths. We may speak some big word. We can read it or memorize it. But even Adikavaye, Lord Brahma, he can express. But even his expression, he's feeling inadequate. But even if one gets lifetimes of Brahma, it would be difficult to estimate the mercy, because the mercy is coming in the form within the heart, acharya chaitya vapusasakatim janaki, coming within the heart, and it's also coming externally as the spiritual master. And the guru is giving the shastras. I mean, nobody could have shastra. No one could understand shastras. Even the most pious, intelligent men in the West, they would send Bhagavad-gita, say like Thoreau Emerson or something like that. But they understood that it's very great, but they could not really get the detail. They didn't have the, first of all, I don't know if they had some type of translation in those days, like 150 years ago or something. But Prabhupada has come to give the exact meaning. Acharjamam vijanimam navamanyeta tattavit. So Prabhupada showed the example too. Acharati yashastartha. Not only he's giving the shastra, but he's acting. There's two Bhagavats, and these two Bhagavats, not only the Bhagavatam, but the person Bhagavat. So we have to run after. Daya Tava Pache Pache, this Bhaktivinoda Thakur's song, saying, I'm running after Shuddha Bhakata Charana Renu, the pure devotee, Shuddha Bhakata Charana Renu. It is the root, mula, root. Krishna Bhakta Janma Mula Hoy Sadhusanga. Krishna Bhakti Hoy Mulas Hoy Sadhusanga. Sadhusanga is the root cause of bhakti. And without bhakti, we'll always remain eternally with this ragadvesha. So practically everyone in the world, although they're humans, they're settling for this attraction. Bishama Bishaya Bisha. Narottam Das, he's describing. Bishama Bishaya Bisha Satata Kaina. They're always drinking this Bishama, sense gratification, the sense object. He's saying he's doing that, but he's absorbed in Krishna Lila. But he's saying Bishama Bishaya Bisha. Vishaya Charya Kabe Shuddha Habima. He's praying, when will I give up? How my mind will become purified from these sense objects described here. Vishaya, and acting upon. Vishayam Indrescharam. In the 5th chapter, there's one verse that describes 2 verses in a row that even though he's interacting with the senses, still he's above it, always above it. Okay, remember those 2 verses, 8 and 9, describing while eating, while evacuating, while doing anything, sleeping. He knows he's not part of that. So this is being forced upon us by Krishna in this chapter. This is the solid basis of Bhagavad Gita. It is this sum and substance, and it's called Buddhi Yoga. One develops his intelligence by reading this chapter again and again. One should never neglect this Bhagavad-gita. Sometimes we're forgetting, we don't chant chapter, but it's so important. Bhagavad-gita is the basis of everything. It's always tempting. We just want to become absorbed in some Bhagavatam shlokas, and Bhagavatam is further advancement too. There's so many examples. What happens when one is, you take Daksha, or you begin in the first canto with Vyasadeva. Vyasadeva was not happy. He had to approach his guru. Please find out. You're the most intelligent person. So you find out why he was sitting on the banks of that Saraswati River, as we hear in the third, fourth chapter, fifth chapter of Bhagavatam, first canto. And Narguni came, Puja Amasa. He's as worshipable as Lord Brahma. And so Vyasadeva, he expressed to him, how is it that I'm still dissatisfied? He said, yes, you have done very wonderful works, but you have not described these pastimes of Krishna. Therefore, you're feeling despondent. So this is then he gave him so many instructions. And in the beginning, even before that, we read Veta tam samya tat sarvam tatatas taranugrahat bruyus nigdasya shishasya guravo. The sages, headed by Shonaka, when they approached Sutta Goswami, they addressed him, glorified him. This is the business of the disciple, to glorify the guru, to accept. So one of their verses, they said, Saumya tat sarvam means, Saumya means very gentle. One has to accept the instructions of the guru. So if anyone has been, I could particularly relate recently reading Giriraj's book, how Prabhupada was so powerful. Even his most advanced, supposedly advanced disciples, they were still arguing. They didn't want to accept, because it was very difficult. Like Prabhupada says in this purport, even something that he doesn't want to do, but he'll have to do. So how could those devotees do what they did? And Prabhupada is still able to correct the situation. At one point, they were so fried out being in Juhu. There were snakes and rats, giant cockroaches, unbelievable mosquitoes, all kinds of problems there. Nobody wanted to stay there. So they got a flat that was more downtown. So when Prabhupada walked in there, it was just painted. Of course, many times the place was painted just the very day Prabhupada would come. But this place they had donated by one big rich life member, but they had it painted. And so Prabhupada came and he said, so you're having programs here? First thing he said, because their idea was they're collecting money down and making life members, preaching in Bombay. And they're living in Juhu, and it took quite some time to go from Juhu and to go all the way downtown to Bombay. So they got a flat much closer downtown. So when Prabhupada came in, he said immediately, so this you're having morning program, evening program? They said, no, Prabhupada, we're going, we just painted the place. But he said, before you painted, were you having the morning program? You weren't having, right? So they said, no, no. So you're simply eating and sleeping. Now you're going to these rich men. The rich men, they're performing tapasya. They're also going from here. They're going downtown, and they're also going down to Bombay and like that. And they're making money, working very hard. So you're working hard, and they're seeing so many sadhus are doing as you are doing. Maybe you're Westerners, so they haven't seen that before. But still, he equated that. He said, he called it Vaisho Pajivaka. Now, I don't know where this term came from, but Prabhupada said it several times. Vaisho means dressing, and Upajivaka means living by dressing. So he said these members, they're used to so many sadhus coming and asking for, donations. They have maybe some big temple, some project they're doing, feeding this, doing so many things. Probably called it Beish Upajivaka. Living by Beish means dress. So he always chastising like that. Beish Upajivaka. So what is the use? You'll have food, you'll eat, you'll go and collect money. That is not our mission. We want to show that we have a different mission to bring them out of this bodily consciousness. They are maybe very pious. They're willing to give, but if we show a very strong example, same thing when I was in Vrindavan, in similar, Prabhupada is very hammering this point. He had us all sitting in his room. In 74, the whole Vrindavan temple was not finished. First, the Prabhupada's room was finished. Temple was just still had, metal, cement, and bamboo scaffolding. There was no guest house, nothing, just the temple. And Prabhupada's room was almost finished. So he was sitting in there, and some reason or other, I must have stayed later than the rest of the festival. I was staying the whole time, yeah. So we were sitting in there. Prabhupada said, and he had us chanting the 6 Goswami Ashtakam, how they lived. Though they were so wealthy, they gave up everything. Because then simply after Krishna, hey Radhe Vrajadevi Kechalalite. So Prabhupada said, in Vrindavan now, I don't see anyone that advanced like 6 Goswami. Prabhupada had been living for 6-7 years before, and so he could see, what's going on. At least not visible like 6 Goswami. But he said, our leaders should become like that. So he was always pushing, especially the leaders. And everybody, the leaders then everyone can follow them. So at one point they gave up the whole Juhu project. Of course, that had happened already. But they just gave up the whole contract. Prabhupada was so much desiring to have those deities there, that temple built, but still they just gave it up. And still Prabhupada came and saved the situation. At one point, that one demon who was selling the land, he died. Then only his wife was there. So Prabhupada was treating her like daughter. He brought her in, and she was crying and apologizing and felt bad. And so Prabhupada was able to settle up every detail. He knew everything about the laws. He knew everything how to do business, exactly how to deal. And there were different parties involved. So expert, nipuna. What does it say? That they're Krishna Kirtana Gana Nartana Pano Nipano Saddharma. They're very expert at establishing the Saddharma. So Prabhupada was expert. And Rupa and Sanatan, they were acting through. Prabhupada, transparent, because he had no desire for sense gratification, raga, vimukta. He's a completely liberated person. He's able to, so at least, even if we can't act, we can see. Prabhupada says in some of these purports, even Vishwanath Chakravarti says, they say that even if one is not, cannot control his senses and is not seemingly liberated, if he's sympathetic to those who are, he is as good as liberated, because he will soon be liberated. As one verse in the Gita says, what does it say? Gyaninatu tad. No, there's other verse that says, Nahi gyanina sadrisham pavitrami vidyate. He will become purified soon. Nahi gyanina sadrisham pavitrami vidyate. Kalanatmani vidyate. Very soon he'll become liberated by this knowledge. So if we read Gita over and over again, study, hear it. Somebody chants, somebody hears, it doesn't matter. Lord Chaitanya was hearing from Ramananda Roy. He was hearing, he's not doing everything. Eko Bahu Sham, he's one, but he's supporting everything. Nityo Nityanam. And there's so many aspects to study. We could think, oh, this verse is, but we have to see that only 2-3 verses, and I think in verse 61, Krishna started saying himself, Yukta Asita Matpara. Because we hear that in the middle 7 chapters, is bhakti. But here already in the verse 61, if you have to have read it recently, one who restrains his senses, keeping them under full control, and fixes his consciousness on me is known as a man of steady intelligence. Tasya Praga. There's 8 verses that describe this. Tasya Praga Pratishtita. Because Arjuna was asking this question, how does he sit? Yukta, Asita, how does he stand? How does he talk? How does he act? So this is what it means. Not that he's sitting in one particular, but how does he remain? How does he exist, basically, in the broad sense. So many of these words are, they have broad meanings, like Videyatma. It's like when the sages in Naimisharanya were speaking with Sutta Goswami, they tat somyam, that because you're meek and humble, very simple, Vetatam Saumya Tat Saram Tata Tat Anugraha. You follow Anugraha. Therefore you have attained the mercy of your spiritual masters, all your spiritual masters. Gurvo Guyam Apyuta. So those who are submissive to the instructions of the gurus. And Prabhupada also said that the advanced disciples should be considered almost on the level of the guru. Like at least when I joined, we had great respect. I know when I had seen Prabhupada once or twice, but when I came into the LA temple, then all these devotees like, Dayananda, Kurandar, and we had great respect for them. New bhaktas, we don't know anything. Of course, they'd only been around 2 years or something. It's not like they were seasoned and, lifelong devotees, but we had great respect. We had no connection with Prabhupada. So then you could make quick advancement. You listen. It's not only, and Prabhupada also was upset when some newer devotee would criticize a senior devotee, even senior devotees like in England. There were several devotees, they were complaining about Shyam Sundar or something, and he was wasting money doing something. And, it might have been, but still, Prabhupada said, you have no right, you are not, he is a sannyasi, you should not complain. There's a way to somehow to figure it out how to do it. So one has to be submissive. And and of course, in bhakti, we have ample advantage to take, ample opportunity to take, that our deities are there. We can worship the deity. We can think. Manmanabhava, 9 processes. It's described there like jewels. And even if we don't take the jewels, Lord Chaitanya is going into the ocean of nectar. Prem Mambudo Viharaneyati Chittabish. He is the ocean of nectar. Sometimes he's compared to the tree, but he's swimming in this ocean of Premambudo Viharaneyati Chittabish. Premambudo. Because also otherwise we're stuck in the samsara sindhu, the ocean of samsara. So when one swims in the ocean of prema, how does one do that? How can one just enter? But sometimes we don't enter. So Lord Chaitanya is throwing out the jewels. Shravanam Kirtana Vishnu Smaranam Parasevanam Archana Vandanam Dasham Satyam Atmani Veda. We're reluctant. Kaviraj Goswami says, the more we study the Chintatam Bhaktas Chaitanya, the more we think, because the mind has to be controlled. Otherwise, these senses will go wild. Some of these verses describe Haranti Pasamam Manaha. Just like if one of the senses becomes absorbed and attracted, what to speak of all of them. If even one, then we off, just like a boat. Now is given there. The example of the boat is tipping over in the water. It's rocking the boat. So we can fall into this ocean. So it's not a very nice, the samsara sindhu taranayodiyam yadishat. If in the heart, shinvatam svakata Krishna panya shravana vidyantasto badrani. Krishna is in the heart. When we begin to hear and chant, he's very attractive. Abhadrani. And then the Abhadras, the attraction for these things automatically fall off. Vasudevi Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayoga Janatyasu Vairagyam Gyanam Ahitukom. Then we'll be naturally attracted and Shushu Sho Shadadana Vasudeva Gataru Shanmatseva Viprasha Punyashava. Just by doing service to the Guru. And everyone in ISKCON, after all, is doing service for Prabhupada. Even in the beginning, it doesn't have a relation with any Guru or anything, but if he just hears, he's not only doing service for Prabhupada, he's doing service for Krishna. And it's going, Vasudeva Gataruchi, Syanmahatseva Viprasya, Mahatseva. So we wanted, that's why people are enthusiastic to give out books, because that's Mahat Seva. Even someone is very humble, and usually a book distributor, in order to do books, you have to be humble. I'm not a great book distributor, but I see how they act. And they want to save the jivas. So Prabhupada has somehow entered their ear, then his books, and Krishna. Prabhupada said, Krishna has tricked you because you're attracted. So one has to be attracted by the spiritual master, by these great sadhus. And the great sadhus are nugraha. They're giving that mercy. They're passing out the mercy. And Janasya Krishna Vimukasya Daiva, because by Daiva, bad luck or providence, sometimes we say, yeah, it's karma or whatever it is, it's bad somehow or other. Durdaiva, they've turned their face away from Krishna since time immemorial. Krishna Bahya Mukh, Anadi Bahya Mukh Jeev Krishna Bulige. Akdev Maya Samsara. They've entered into samsara. We don't know when. We can't say, but from time. Anadi Karma Pale. And this karma is Anadi. Beyond time, before time, we don't know when it begins. Doesn't begin. Beginningless. Therefore, we're called Nitya Bhada. It's not very nice to think about that. Imagine if you've been, there's no beginning or end to our bad karma, but at the same time, we're eternal. Mami Vangsha Jiva Loki Jiva Bhutrashana. But we're struggling. Jiva Bhutrashana. Manasastan Indriyani. We're struggling with these Indriyas since time immemorial. Although we're part and parcel of Krishna, but he never gives us up. But he's dragging, so we should consider it. Labbasu durlabamidam bahusambhavanti. After many bahusambhavanti means many births. Asatim Chatur, 8,400,000 is given in detail, Padma Purana. So after that, Bhagavatam says, Labba Sudurlabha is very difficult. Sudurlabha Prashantatma. Kosti Shakti Mahamune. There's many persons trying for liberation. Muktanam. Here it's describing liberation. Many persons are trying and they may become liberated. Muktanabi Siddhanam. They may become Siddha. Even amongst those who are muktas, they're liberated. Prabhupada actually sometimes would say liberation is not, liberation is with folded hands. That Bilvamangala Thakur has given this verse, that mukti, mukulatanjale sevate, that mukti, Bilvamangala said, is waiting with folded hands, anjali, just to do some service for the devotee. What to speak of dharmartha kama, religiosity, sense gratification, artha kama, economic development. Even liberation is, please take me, and devotee doesn't care. So it's a great description. Mukti Mukatanjali. How does that happen? Bhaktis twice, Bhagavan Yadisha. By fixed up bhakti. Completely strong, steady bhakti. Bhaktis twice, Tira Bhagavan Yadisha. Daivenana Palati Divikashora Murti. Even though Bilvamangala was blind by the time he was composing these verses, he was seeing Divya Kashora Murti, the form of Krishna. He didn't have to have external senses. So even when we have external senses, they're useless. What does it say in the second Sukadeva Goswami? It says, Bhayate te naine narano, Lingani Vishnu. If one doesn't see Lingani Vishnu, or the form of Krishna, Vishnu in the temple, then his eyes are like the peacock and his ears and like that. So when Mahaprabhu was, it's described in Anchalila, how his senses were also out of control, but they were running each one towards Krishna. And he didn't know which way he's going to go, but his eye, and that's described in those verses. Same Madana Mohana Sakitanoti Netra. My nose is attracted by the scent of Krishna, and my ears are attracted to hear the flute sound of Krishna and his sweet voice and his tinkling ankle bells, and of course my eyes, the form. This way he's describing the five senses. Krishna's Kaviraj in his Govinda Lilamrita, he had quotes these verses in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Same Madana Mohan, because that's why Madan Mohan, the Sanatana Goswami's deity, we have to be established first with that deity. The first thing is the senses have to be attracted by Madan Mohan. Same Madana Mohana Sakitanoti Netra, and the ears, the nose, the taste. When Mahaprabhu was getting the Mahaprasadam, there's that chapter, Tasting Nectar, that Lord Chaitanya is tasting the nectar. Imagine that. What is Krishna Pela, it's called. He gets the Mahaprasadam from Jagannath. He's eating that all the time. But still, on this one occasion, it's described that he was particularly describing how wonderful it was. He said, well, you could say these are ordinary things. This is just some cardamom, black pepper, or some yogurt and some fruit and mixed together. But no, that Jagannath has tasted it. Krishna has tasted this. And then this Mahaprasad. And three things are Mahaprasad. Also the dust. What does it say? Krishna Bhakta. The Abhishesh, Mahaprasad is the dust, the water that is bathed the feet of the devotee. The prasad, the Kalidas was chasing all every devotee in all of Bengal and Orissa to get their remnants, and he was very intelligent to figure out how to get the remnants. The senses were so much. Raghunath Das, he was eating the rejected. He could have had big feasts. He was having huge feasts, but he didn't care for it. He thought, I'm like a prostitute. I'm taking money from my father, my uncle. This nonsense. Then he was taking then he was just getting from the begging booth. And after a while, Mahaprabhu said, where's Raghunath? He asked Govinda. He said, I don't see Raghunath. He's not even begging. You should see him sometimes here. But yeah, I don't see him. He said, oh, he was thinking that it's not good to even to beg, because he would think that this person gave me something before. Now he might give me something. Didn't want to have any of this type of thing. So now he's just taking the rejected grain, rice, that the cows will not even eat. Now that is, I mean, just when you think about it, Mahaprabhu Bhakta Gan Vairagya Pradhan Jaha Deki Priti Hoy Gaura Bhagavan, described that Gaura Bhagavan, Krishna, Lord Chaitanya, Mahaprabhu Bhakta, Mahaprabhu's Bhaktas, Vairagya Pradhan. Vairagya, this detachment from sense gratification, is the most attractive thing for Lord Chaitanya. So therefore he was running when he heard that Raghunath Das was taking, he would also to get the remnants. Imagine. It was rice that the cows would not eat. We have cows here on the farm. My wife milks the cows. I mean, they might be a little picky, I'm not sure. They probably wouldn't eat rotten rice. when we go there, we feed them carrots and apples and things like that. Of course, they get the grains, but just imagine the cows would not eat it. Raghunath Das is picking it up and washing it off, and then he put a little salt on it, and he ate that. And when Lord Chaitanya went there, he grabbed it, just like when Krishna took the flat rice, the chipped rice from Sudama Pipa. So then Swarup Damodar said, "You can't, don't eat that. That's not good." But Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was saying that this I am eating, that's true. The prasada is getting offered 54 times, whatever it is, 56, 54 times in the temple. And we can eat that anytime, but this is the topmost prasadam. That's what he did. So this prasadam that's being talked about, this is a high level of prasadam. Our idea of prasadam is Mahaprasadam, Mahaprasade, Govinde, Namabhami Vaishnava. Very nice, sumptuous. Prabhupada said, even if it's not sumptuous, many times Prabhupada said it's prasadam should be sumptuous, but he said, even if it's not sumptuous. And so we see this example of we have to always be hearing that. And when Raghunath Das was in Vrindavan, he was just taking every other day some chach, buttermilk, and piece of roti or something, hardly anything he was eating. So very advanced. Vairagya Vidya Bhakti Yogam. So Mahaprabhu has come to give everyone Vairagya Vidya, this detachment. If we simply take Gita, we have no connection with Lord Chaitanya, no connection with the Parampara. Just imagine if this would sound really heavy and dry, Bhagavad-gita. I mean, it's amazing, but it would be if you didn't have Prabhupada's purport or something. Now, many times, some like in the 8th chapter, he'll in almost, half the verse purports, he'll talk about chanting. This can be accomplished by chanting, because that's really heavy. 8th chapter, you have to, withdraw all your senses. Mordhyaya, Atmana, Pranam, Brahmacharya, and all those things, very, very heavy. One at the time of death, Abhyasi Yoga, Chaitasana, Nagamina. But Prabhupada stressing over again, by chanting, Chaitadarpana Marjan, Bhav Mahadevagni, Nivapna, Shreya Kairava Chandrikavita, Vidyavadi, Divanam. And Sanatana Goswami, he says, Krishnashananavada Kirtane Shutam Namasan Kirtana Neva Mukyam. Tat prema sampal janane swayamde. That you attain prema just by taking this name of Krishna. Krishnashana. There are many types of names of Krishna, but the principal name is Krishna. Tanama sankirtanam eva mukyam. It is the chief name of the Lord, Krishna. And he is Krishna Chaitanya. Chaitanya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gorti Sena. He's giving out Krishna Prema Pradayate. He's mercifully giving out the mercy. So Mahaprabhu is giving out the mercy. The fruits, he's saying, Ataev Ami Agya. My order is distribute these fruits. What are the mercy of these fruits? So he's saying, give out the fruits. You may think, I have nothing, what can I do? So then somehow or other we do anything, give out Prabhupada's book. We don't have to be anything. Prabhupada even said that. What we are 3-5 minute speaking will do, give out the book. Of course, he wanted us to speak, not be impersonal, but at the same time, sometimes devotees get distracted or something. No, don't get distracted. I think that's probably what Prabhupada's point of that, giving out the mercy. So therefore Mahaprabhu says, my order is give out these fruits to everyone, jari tari, and everyone everywhere, kamsabala, and they'll become free. Just by that they'll become liberated from Ajari Amare. They'll become Ajari. Ajari means without old age. Jara Marana Mokshaya. Gita says that Jara, Marana, birth and death. You'll become free from birth. Jara Marana Mokshaya. Mama Shritya. How? Mama Shritya Tanti. By taking shelter of me. Taking shelter of Krishna means reading Gita and chanting the name of Krishna like that. Okay, so I don't know. I think we could take questions. A lot to say. If anyone has any discussion points here.
Anyone have any questions? You can unmute yourself if you have.
Atmanivadinam's here.
Atmanivadana, yeah, he's in Europe. He has like time difference. It's late at night for him, so
No.
Yeah, he's not here. So, let's see if anyone has questions.
Okay, nobody has much to say.
Let's see. Dixon, do you
Dixon, Arlen.
No, I don't, Prabhu, but I'm really enjoying.
Well, 5, including me, so it's 4 people. Well, I guess people have other stuff to do Saturday night.
Yeah.
Out on the town, enjoying it.
Yeah, but I'm really enjoying the quotes, the different verses that you're quoting.
I don't know. Are you saying? Is anyone saying anything? I don't hear them actually.
Can you hear me?
My sound is off.
Puskar Prabhu.
Okay, my sound went off.
Yeah, I'm saying
Sorry.
I'm really enjoying the various verses that you're quoting. It's really, especially with the Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, it's really nice
Okay.
to hear them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, they should be read. Chintitam Chintitam Bhaktas Chaitanya. He's saying, always read them. Yeah, he's glorifying this Chaitanya Charitamrita, even though it's his own book, but he takes the dust. Kaviraj Goswami says he takes the dust of the feet of the readers of the Chaitanya Charitamrita.
Mark, he said something that I just wanted a question just came to my head. He said that even though we might not have connection with the parampara, like we don't have a direct connection like I'm a Bhakta. I started not long ago, so I don't have any direct connection with any guru. But you made you made a point that if Mahat Seva tried by 7 the pure devotee, Krishna is pleased. So for somebody who is not initiated and still in the movement, how does a person make progress if he's not connected? Because I understand that real devotion begins when you.
No one said. I don't know if I said not connected, but if you're not,
Mm-hmm.
if you feel like you're not like realizing the verse, you probably said, and Krishna himself in the 12th chapter, he's saying first in the beginning of the 12th chapter, Arjuna says, well, Evam Satata Yukta Bhakta Champrepas, can you tell me, because what's better, the impersonal or the personal? So then Krishna answers them, Maya Vesha Manoye Manityu, you should just think of me, Maya Sakta, over and over again. Maya Sakta, put your mind on me, attach yourself to me. But he also in the 2nd chapter, he also did Tadvidi, or the 4th chapter, Tadvidi Panipatena, you should accept a guru. It's interesting because Lord Chaitanya, even when some devotees would want to go directly to him, he would not take any disciple. He would send them, Bhagavat Paragya Bhagavatastani. You should, if you want to get mercy, you have to go, those who say they're my devotee, we have those verses in 11th canto. Mad Bhakta Puja Vyadika. Adhika means better than me. So Mad Bhakta is more worshipable. It's 11th canto. Krishna says directly, my devotee is more worshipable. One who says he's my devotee directly, he is not. He has to. But yeah, so I don't know how many years we're talking about, but if one Mahat Seva, my idea was that Mahat Sevam Dvar Mahornukya, by doing the service of Prabhupada, then you're not directly getting initiated by Prabhupada, but that's very important service. Eventually, if not in this life, one gets inspired, he gets initiated or something. So many of us are fortunate. Or some of us rather, very few actually. There's so many devotees now compared to when Prabhupada was around. We only had 48 100 initiated Prabhupada disciples, but Jayapataka Maharaj, for instance, he has 60,000, and he's initiated himself 60,000, which is, I think, about, how many times is that? 12 times more, He's initiated 12 times more. I mean, I don't know if he's thinking they're his men, of course, but he's giving all credit to Prabhupada, hopefully. But anyone who's initiating, I just picked out Jayapataka because I know he has initiated a lot of people. I can't say who's following and who's not, but they initiate. And quite a few of my god brothers, they have a lot of people they initiated, so people have faith. So that's always amazing to me. I mean, I don't feel like I should be doing any kind of initiating myself. I mean, it's funny too, because Adikarta, he's always pointing this out. Not many times he's pointing out that to become a sannyasi nowadays, like you have to be like a Bhakti Shastri, take the course of Bhakti Shastri. Like there's some guys on the list of sannyasi list, they're not sannyasi, from 5 years ago, but now they made it so strict that you're not only Bhakti Shastri, Bhakti Vaibhav, Bhakti Vedanta. I'm not sure about Bhakti Sarvabhauma, but I know you have to have a lot of like academic, you have to study the Shastras a lot, so half of them had to be dropped off the list over the last few years because they have not studied it. It takes a year to study these things and to know all the things. So, but to become a household guru, if you're like a Prabhupada disciple, like Adikarta, he didn't have to do, I think maybe he took the Bhakti Shastri, but Mahatma, Kalakanta, like that, they don't require, but because they're Prabhupada disciples, and even though they're householders, they're able to initiate because that's the etiquette, so. But they don't have to, much more strict to become a sannyasi than to become a household guru. That's the sum and substance of what Adikarta says. He initiated one brahmachari now. Actually, a brahmachari is really first class. He cooked when Adikarta had his birthday. I guess he was 76, 4 months ago. And his disciple, one disciple, he cooked. He got help from some Mataji, but he cooked an amazing feast. Adikarta he has cows, so he gave him the cow milk, but it was a really great feast. Bitter melon and about 3 or 4 sabjis, and there was 3 or 4 sweets. I'm too old to eat all those things, but it was a pretty accomplished thing for a guy. He was just a new bhakta a few months before, but he knows how to cook, how to preach, how to do so many things. Very nice.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Originally the householders were the gurus, really, because when you say guru kula means family. So the small kids would go and live with the guru. He'd have like, I don't know how many kids, 4 or 5, or maybe more or less. I don't know how many, depending. But that's why it's called guru kula, because he'd be in the house of the guru and learning from the time like 5, 6 years old. And the sannyasis didn't particularly initiate. They were like, free, like Abadut, they're just wandering around. Sometimes they initiate, but they, for sure, it's not like you had to be a sannyasi. The household, the Guru Kuli Vasandanto, Brahmachari Guru Kuli Vasandanto Gurorhitam. One has to. That's why in the 7th canto, Narad Muni gives all those rules that if the guru's wife is very young, then the brahmachari who might be living there, he has nothing to do with her, even though he accepts her as like his mother, but still he has to be very careful. Anything else out there? Okay, you guys want to go out and party now? You need relief after listening to me for an hour.
Maybe we can finish with another.
Anyway, I recommend that Giriraj Maharaj's book, I Will Build You a Temple. I mean, I have a certain, even though I wasn't there in 72, 3, 4, 5, 6, but in 77, I was still, they still had the old original, it was just a shed temple, it was nothing. Of course, the temple was almost built. In 77, I went through there during Gopurnim time, like say February of 77, but by the time after the beginning of 78, and January 20th, they had the opening. So a little less than a year later, then it was finished. But I could relate to some of it. But of course, I know all the people in the book, but even if, I'm sure if you don't know them, but it's an amazing book. I mean, if you want to read history of Prabhupada, it's like, it's amazing. Great
I'm
book.
currently reading this one, Swami in a Strange Land. I don't know if you've read this book.
Right. No, I never finished that Yogeshwar's book. Right.
Yes.
Yeah,
really
that's a whole other ball game. But somehow I didn't get it. I have to read that, but there's so many books to read. I mean, Tejas, he's an old devotee, stayed in Delhi. Prabhupada used to say sometimes Delhi means Tejas, but he didn't write a book. Like, he got 1,000 pages that he sent me the whole thing, a link to it, and he asked me to go over and read it. But I mean, there's so much stuff to read, but he didn't write like a whole history of the Delhi, and all that, because they, the temple was built long after he was there. For one thing, when Giriraj was there continually, even after the temple was built, and he knows every detail. And Delhi was a weird thing because they could never make members that well, and even like it was a whole other type of scenario, than Bombay.
I see.
And probably didn't spend much time. Bombay, he spent like 550 days or something. 550 days. That's a lot of time.
So Joshua Green is what is it Guru? What is it Mukunda Goswami Maharaj? Joshua M. Green. I mean, that's the Kami name. But what is his initiated name?
Mukunda Maharaj?
Yogeshwara Prabhu.
No, Joshua Green is not.
Oh, you must know him if you're in New York. Joshua Green, yeah.
That's Yogeshwara Prabhu.
Yeah,
Okay.
Even class at our program regularly also. So.
Okay.
But yeah, I started reading his book. I read his one book about George Harrison, Sun, Here Comes the Sun, or something, a long time ago. But I haven't read. I read a little bit of the Swami. I have it here. So many books. I didn't even read Yamuna's book. I mean, she didn't write the book. She left her body, but all the notes and her friend wrote, and other people helped put the book together. I only read little bits and pieces of that book.
Yeah, I particularly like this book because it tells the stages of Prabhupada's life, the way he started in India and the struggles that he had to go through trying to get donations and publish books, and like throughout his household life and everything is really elaborately presented.
I'm sure it's great, but with Giri Raj's book is like every conversation detailed. He interviewed like 400 something people, and it just zooms in on that story, and it's like Prabhupada even said at one point, he said someone should write a book about this. It was a great fight. He said someone should write a book. So Giri Raj did write the book. Finally, it took him a long time, at least 10, 12 years. I've been hearing about the book, but this is someone writing. It's not like a broad thing. It's there zooming in with all the conversations of Prabhupada blasted these devotees and telling them they're simply dressing to get money, and it's all out there,
I must get that.
Giriraj himself probably would many times say, "Oh, Giriraj, he's like a child, he's so innocent." But even though he's renounced, of course, Prabhupada favored him a lot, but he had to bring in, reinforcements, fly in Karandar, fly in Shyamasundar, fly in Tamal Krishna to help him. But it was Shyamsundar, and of course Shyamsundar has his books, but too. And Mukunda Maharaj has his book, The Miracle on Second. They're good books. Hari Shari has 5, 6 books. And But the book is particular because it zooms in on that whole story, and it's an amazing, heavy story, and how Prabhupada was like a super sadhu. Like this one lawyer came, for instance, right, and he was from the opposite, like competing these guys who had wanted to buy the same property and all that. What was his name? He was like a Jain. I forget his name. Anyway, he was a lawyer, and he came to meet Prabhupada. So first he came in, and he very strongly, this lawyer said to Prabhupada, you know, he's dressed like a Hindu with a little cap, Jain thing. So he said to Prabhupada, said, whose land is it? Because he also put up money on that land, because the owner was cheating, trying to get money from different people. Besides Prabhupada, anyway, you have to read the whole story. So Prabhupada just looked at him and said, it is my land. Then after the whole discussion, Giriwaj was escorting this man down to his car. And as they were walking down, the man was continually shaking his head like this. He said, your Guru Maharaj is a real Guru Maharaj. He is Paka Guru. He is real Guru. Your Guru Maharaj is a real Guru. I mean, the way he described it, you know how Indians shake their head, like he was shaking his head over and over and said, yeah, he is real Guru Maharaj. He is a Paka, not just some bogus. I mean, there was that Sadaji Watlal. He was the head of the Hindu Vishwa Parishad, which is the main Hindu society, you know, and he was the head of it. He was a wealthy man too. I remember seeing him even in 77, 8, and he had a saying in Hindi, which I can't say in Hindi, but you can hear it on the tape. So, but in English, Prabhupada said it. He liked it very much, Prabhupada, because Sadaji Watlal said, he said, Bhaktivedanta Swami has put all other Swamis on the black list. All other Swamis on the black list. So Prabhupada said, yes, he has understood. So you have to be really advanced. You have to walk the talk. You know, who can do that? Put all other Swamis on the black list, and probably, you know, very, very heavy. Very humble and very heavy. Soft, Vajrarapikato Rani, Kushamani. He's soft like a Kushum rose, and Vajrarapikatora, hard like a lightning bolt. Same time. You get the whole package. Okay. No one else is saying anything. We're going to sign out, right?
You can, if you don't mind, we can also end with a short kirtan, if you don't mind.
Okay, yes. What happened to Atma this time?
Yeah, he's in Europe, so he has like time. He's at
What is he doing?
Europe. He's in Europe.
Oh, he's in Europe, his wife's relatives or something.
Yeah. So he has huge time difference. And
Krishna Chaitanya, Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta-vrinda, Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Gaur Bhakta-vrinda, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jai.
Thank you very much, Puskar Prabhu, for a beautiful class today. And please, everyone, join me in expressing our appreciation to Puskar Prabhu. So, Puskar Prabhu, ki jai.
Jai.
Jai
Haribo.
Prabhu.